Ever wonder what happens when a film director's son blasts a trumpet throughout production, or when marbles become a murder weapon? To Sleep with Anger, Charles Burnett's haunting 1990 masterpiece, hides supernatural folklore, accidental casting coincidences, and distribution disasters that nearly buried one of the decade's greatest films. From a genius grant that saved the production to an editor who went from indie darling to vampire blockbusters, these facts reveal the magic and mayhem behind this criminally underseen classic. Fact 1. Director's son was the neighborhood nuisance. Throughout To Sleep with Anger, there's a peculiar recurring character who never speaks a single line but manages to make his presence felt across the entire neighborhood. A young boy appears periodically, blasting away on his trumpet with notes so off-key and jarring that they interrupt conversations, startle characters, and generally irritate everyone within earshot. What audiences might not realize is that this anonymous trumpet player wasn't just some child actor hired for a quirky side role. He was actually Charles Burnett's own son, cast by his father to play this disruptive musical presence. The inspiration for this character came directly from Burnett's own childhood memories. As a young boy growing up in Los Angeles, Burnett himself played the trumpet, and he wasn't exactly considerate about his practice sessions. In a 2016 interview, Burnett admitted that he used to intentionally leave his bedroom window wide open and blow his trumpet as loudly as he possibly could, fully aware that he was driving his neighbors absolutely crazy. It was a mischievous act of childhood rebellion, and decades later, Burnett channeled that memory into his film by having his son recreate the same annoying behavior on screen. The character serves a deeper purpose beyond simple comic relief. In the film's haunting final moments, the boy's terrible playing suddenly transforms into beautiful, soulful music that flows seamlessly into the end credits. This magical shift represents mastery through persistence and practice, the idea that even the most irritating noise can eventually become something perfect. Burnett described this transformation as his way of slyly announcing the perfection of his own filmmaking craft, turning what seems like a minor recurring joke into one of the film's most meaningful symbolic elements. Fact 2. Genius. Grant rescued production from obscurity. By 1988, Charles Burnett found himself in a desperate situation that threatened to end his filmmaking career before it could truly flourish. After struggling for years to get his previous independent films properly distributed and seen by audiences, Burnett later described this period as having reached rock bottom financially. He had a young family to support, bills were piling up, and the prospects of making another film seemed impossibly distant. It was at this lowest point that something remarkable happened. Burnett received word that he had been selected for the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Fellowship, commonly known as the Genius Grant. The MacArthur Fellowship is one of the most prestigious awards in the arts, given to individuals who show exceptional creativity and promise in their field. The grant came with substantial financial support that required no specific project proposal or strings attached, giving recipients complete freedom to pursue their work. For Burnett, this money was literally life-changing. It allowed him to finally step back from the constant worry about making ends meet and focus his energy on developing a new screenplay that had been forming in his mind, one that drew deeply from his memories of Southern Black folklore and family dynamics. The grant bought Burnett the precious commodity of time to write, revise, and perfect the script that would become To Sleep with Anger. Without this MacArthur Fellowship arriving at precisely the moment when Burnett's career hung in the balance, the film almost certainly would never have been made. The Genius Grant didn't just fund a movie, it rescued an entire artistic vision from obscurity and gave one of America's greatest filmmakers the chance to create his masterpiece. Fact 3. Nationwide release. Meant 17 theaters. When To Sleep with Anger finally made its way to theaters in 1990, it had everything going for it on paper. Critical acclaim from major publications, 4 Independent Spirit Awards including Best Director and Best Screenplay, a special jury prize from the Sundance Film Festival, and most importantly, a leading performance by Danny Glover, who was at the peak of his fame from the wildly successful Lethal Weapon franchise. By all reasonable expectations, the film should have received a wide theatrical release that would give audiences across the country a chance to discover this acclaimed work. Instead, what happened was nothing short of a distribution disaster. The Samuel Goldwyn Company, which handled the film's release, opened it in a shockingly limited number of theaters. Sources vary between 17 and 18 locations nationwide. To put that number in perspective, a typical wide-release film opens in thousands of theaters, and even modest independent films usually manage to secure at least a few hundred screens. The distributor also provided an advertising budget of less than $400,000, which was barely enough to let people know the film even existed. This combination of minimal theater placement and almost non-existent marketing meant that even people who wanted to see the film based on glowing reviews had virtually no opportunity to do so. The distributor apparently had no idea how to market a nuanced portrait of middle-class black family life that blended folklore, drama, and subtle supernatural elements. Rather than positioning it as a film with broad appeal, they treated it as a niche art house curiosity, essentially guaranteeing that this masterpiece would remain invisible to the vast majority of moviegoers for decades to come. Fact 4. Opening Inferno was just Patriarch's nightmare. To Sleep with Anger begins with one of the most unsettling and visually striking opening sequences in American independent cinema. The film shows Gideon, the family patriarch played by Paul Butler, sitting perfectly still in a chair, dressed formally in a sharp white suit. He's positioned in front of a table with a bowl of fruit, including an apple cut in half and browning in the center, as the opening credits roll and Sister Rosetta Tharpe's haunting gospel song, Precious Memories, plays on the soundtrack. Flames suddenly and inexplicably erupt from the fruit bowl. The fire spreads with an eerie calm, consuming Gideon's chair and shoes, licking up his body while he remains frozen in place, sweating but unable to move or react to the inferno surrounding him. For first-time viewers, this scene creates immediate confusion and dread. Is this a horror film, a supernatural thriller, or something else entirely? The answer comes moments later through a clever editing technique called a match dissolve. The film reveals that Gideon is actually sitting outside in his backyard, barefoot and clutching his Bible, having fallen asleep while reading. The entire fire sequence was a nightmare, a prophetic vision that sets the tone for everything that follows. This dream functions as a warning of the spiritual and familial turmoil about to descend on Gideon's household. The burning imagery connects to African American folklore traditions about fire, representing both destruction and the presence of evil forces. By establishing this surreal, dreamlike atmosphere right from the opening moments, director Charles Burnett signals to audiences that they're entering a world where the supernatural and the everyday exist side by side. Fact 5. On-screen couple was actually married. In To Sleep with Anger, the character Junior serves as the responsible older son who tries to hold his family together while dealing with his rebellious younger brother and the chaos brought by the mysterious visitor, Harry. Junior's wife, Pat, pregnant with their second child, stands by him throughout the family turmoil. The natural chemistry and comfortable intimacy between these two characters wasn't the result of great acting alone. Actors Carl Lumbly and Vanetta McGee were actually husband and wife in real life when they filmed this movie together. Lumbly and McGee had married in 1986, just a few years before To Sleep with Anger went into production, and they remained married until McGee's death in 2010. Their relationship gave their on-screen partnership an authentic quality that would have been difficult to manufacture through acting alone. The couple had experience playing spouses before this film, having portrayed husband and wife on the groundbreaking 1980s police drama Cagney and Lacey, where Lumbly was a regular cast member and McGee had a recurring role. This wasn't just a case of convenient casting. Both actors brought impressive credentials to their roles. Lumbly had already established himself as a talented character actor in television and film, while McGee had built a notable career in 1970s blaxploitation films before transitioning to more diverse roles. Their real-life partnership allowed them to bring a lived-in quality to Junior and Pat's marriage, making their scenes together feel genuine and grounded. The couple even had a son together, Brandon, who was born in 1988, around the same time they were filming this project. Fact 6. Editor went from indie to vampire blockbusters. The person responsible for shaping the quiet, contemplative rhythm of To Sleep with Anger went on to have one of the most unexpectedly diverse careers in Hollywood editing. Nancy Richardson, who cut Charles Burnett's film in 1990, later found herself working on massively budgeted studio productions that couldn't have been more different from the intimate independent drama she helped create. Most notably, Richardson served as the editor for the first Twilight film in 2008, which launched one of the most commercially successful film franchises of the 21st century and introduced vampire romance to a global audience of millions. Richardson's career trajectory took her from small-scale character studies to big-budget teen blockbusters, and her filmography reads like a tour through multiple genres and budget levels. After To Sleep with Anger, she went on to edit films like Selena, 13, Lords of Dogtown, Step Up, and several other Twilight Saga installments. She also became a professor at UCLA's School of Theater, Film and Television, where she taught editing for nearly 20 years and served on the board of directors for the Editors Guild. Despite the fame and commercial success that came with editing major Hollywood productions, Richardson has consistently maintained that two films stand above all others in terms of personal pride and artistic achievement. The first is Stand and Deliver from 1988, which launched her editing career, and the second is To Sleep with Anger. Her loyalty to these early independent projects reveals something important about where her true passions lie, even as her career took her into the world of mainstream entertainment. Fact 7. Children's toy became supernatural death trap. After spending the entire film manipulating the family and causing chaos with his sinister presence, the character Harry meets his end in one of the most unexpectedly mundane ways imaginable. Young Sonny, Gideon's grandson, who has been quietly observing the turmoil throughout the story, accidentally kicks over his tin of marbles in the kitchen. Harry steps on the kion. Scattered marbles, slips, falls to the floor, and suffers a fatal heart attack right there on the kitchen tiles. For a character who seemed almost supernaturally powerful and impossible to defeat, his death comes from something as simple and ordinary as a child's toy rolling across the floor. This seemingly anticlimactic ending was actually born from practical filmmaking limitations rather than artistic choice. In a later interview, director Charles Burnett explained that he originally planned to follow traditional African-American folklore more closely, which would have required Babe Brother to out-trick the trickster Harry in an elaborate sequence. According to folklore traditions, that's how characters like Harry, gay, based on the legend of the Hairy Man, are supposed to be defeated, through cleverness and outsmarting rather than direct confrontation. However, Burnett calculated that properly executing that storyline would have required an additional 10 to 15 minutes of screen time, involving multiple scenes to set up and pay off the trickery. Since the production didn't have the budget or schedule to accommodate that many extra scenes, Burnett found a creative workaround by using the child and his marbles. He mentioned in interviews that he used to have a can full of marbles as a kid and always had to worry about them spilling everywhere, making this solution feel both personal and practical. Fact 8. Superstitious broom touch, panics evil visitor. Throughout most of To Sleep with Anger, Harry maintains an air of complete confidence and control, charming some family members while manipulating others with his smooth talking and knowing smile. He seems unshakable, almost supernaturally assured in his ability to cause trouble and get away with it. That's what makes one particular scene so jarring and revealing. When young Sonny accidentally brushes Harry's foot with a broom while sweeping the kitchen floor, Harry's entire demeanor changes instantly. The usually cocksure visitor erupts into what witnesses described as paroxysms of panic, reacting with genuine fear and distress to something as innocent as a child's cleaning mistake. This reaction isn't just a quirky character moment, but a deliberate reference to deeply rooted African-American folklore and superstitions brought north from the rural South. According to traditional beliefs, having someone touch your feet with a broom while they're sweeping brings serious bad luck to the person whose feet were touched. Even more significantly, there's another layer to this superstition. Folklore holds that if children are allowed to sweep the floor, they may accidentally sweep unwanted guests right out of the house, forcing them to leave against their will. The scene works on multiple levels because it reveals something crucial about Harry's true nature. For the first time, viewers see him genuinely rattled and vulnerable, stripped of his confident facade by an ancient superstition he can't ignore. It also foreshadows his eventual fate, suggesting that the innocent actions of a child will ultimately be his undoing. The broom incident plants a seed that pays off later when another childhood object, those scattered marbles, brings about Harry's final exit from the household. Fact 9. Production. Juggled a dozen different producers, getting To Sleep with Anger required navigating one of the most complicated and frustrating production journeys in independent film history. Charles Burnett's path to the screen began with a painful rejection when he initially tried to get the project financed. The first group of potential producers looked at his screenplay and not only turned it down, but sent him what Burnett later described as a really nasty letter telling him that he wasn't a writer and essentially attacking his abilities as a screenwriter. It was a crushing blow that could have ended the project before it even started. However, Burnett caught a break when producer Caldecott Chubb, who went by the nickname Cotty, heard about the script through his friendship with Michael Tolkin, who had written The Player. Chubb called Burnett out of the blue and asked if he was working on anything new. When Burnett mentioned he had a script that nobody wanted, Chubb asked him to bring it by his office. After reading it, Chubb decided to take a chance on the project and began the difficult work of assembling financing and support. What followed was a complex puzzle of putting together funding from multiple sources, each requiring their own producer credit as part of the deal. By the time filming wrapped and the credits were finalized, a remarkable 12 different producers were listed as having contributed to bringing the film to life. This unusually high number reflected the reality of independent filmmaking in that era, where projects often required piecing together money from numerous investors, grants, and production companies, each wanting recognition for their role in making the movie possible. Fact 10. PBS rejected it for being too cultural. The story of how To Sleep with Anger came into existence is itself a tale of creative conflict and artistic integrity. Before Burnett ever wrote the screenplay that became this film, he was working on a completely different project for PBS about a young girl who dies due to ironic circumstances. Burnett submitted multiple drafts to the network, but PBS executives kept pushing back with demands for significant changes. They brought in consultants and other voices who wanted to reshape Burnett's vision into something they felt would appeal to a broader audience. The core of the disagreement centered on the cultural specificity of Burnett's storytelling. PBS executives told him they wanted to make the script more mainstream so that everyone could understand it, which in practice meant removing the elements that were deeply rooted in African American folklore and the Black experience. Burnett recalled them saying things like, "That's not the story," when he tried to explain that the cultural and folkloric elements weren't decorative additions, but the actual heart of what he was trying to express. He pushed back, insisting that the story had to be about folklore and the Black experience, and that watering down those elements would destroy what made it meaningful. The situation escalated into what Burnett described as a huge argument with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. They had structured the deal so that payments came only after they approved each draft, which Burnett felt was a trap designed to force his compliance. Eventually, Burnett walked away from the entire PBS project, but the experience sparked something in him. All that frustration and those ideas about folklore and cultural identity became the foundation for a new screenplay, one that would become To Sleep with Anger. Fact 11. Villain based on Southern folklore. Shapeshifter. The enigmatic character Harry mentioned, brought to life by Danny Glover's mesmerizing performance, wasn't simply a troublemaking house guest invented from Charles Burnett's imagination. Harry was actually based on a specific figure from African American folklore that Burnett remembered from his childhood, a legendary creature known as the Hairy Man. This folk character appears in stories passed down through generations in the American South, representing a fascinating blend of different cultural traditions and beliefs that merged together during and after slavery. According to folklore scholars, the hairy man is a complex figure who exists at the intersection of multiple traditions. He's part European devil, bringing the Christian concept of a tempter and corrupter, part African spirit known as a mazimu, connecting to ancestral spiritual beliefs, and part conjure doctor, representing the folk magic practitioners who held important roles in Southern Black communities. This hybrid nature made the hairy man a perfect symbol for the cultural tensions and mixed heritage that Burnett wanted to explore in his film. The folklore surrounding the hairy man includes several key characteristics that influenced how Harry behaves in the movie. According to the traditional stories, the hairy man possesses the power to shapeshift and transform into various animals, which explains why one character in the film refers to Harry as an animal. The legends also emphasize that the hairy man cannot be defeated through direct confrontation or physical force. The only way to overcome him is by outsmarting him, using cleverness and trickery to turn his own schemes back against him, much like the famous Brer Rabbit tales. Fact 12. Bad trumpet playing magically becomes perfect. Throughout. To sleep with anger, audiences are subjected to the recurring sound of that neighborhood boy practicing his trumpet, producing notes so terrible and grating that they interrupt scenes, cause characters to wince, and generally serve as an audio representation of discord and imperfection. His squawking horn becomes almost a character itself, a persistent reminder of things not quite right in this community. But then something magical happens in the film's final moments that transforms this irritating motif into something profound and beautiful. After Harry's body has been shown lying covered on the kitchen floor and the family's ordeal has reached its conclusion, the camera cuts to the trumpet boy one last time as he continues his practice session. He starts playing those same awful honking notes that have plagued the neighborhood throughout the entire movie. But then, without any explanation or visible change, his terrible playing seamlessly and mysteriously transforms into gorgeous, soulful music. The screeching becomes a melancholy lament that serves as the perfect emotional backdrop for the end credits, creating one of the most spine-tingling transitions in independent cinema. Director Charles Burnett explained that this moment works on multiple levels of meaning. On the surface, it represents the natural result of persistence and practice. The boy who kept playing despite his lack of skill has finally achieved mastery through dedication. But Burnett also described this transformation as his way of slyly announcing the perfection of his own filmmaking craft, suggesting that what might seem rough or unconventional throughout the movie has been building towards something beautiful and complete all along, just like the trumpet player's journey from noise to music. Fact 13. Corpse abandoned due to racist emergency response. After Harry slips on the marbles and dies from a heart attack on the kitchen floor, the film takes a disturbing turn that shifts from supernatural folktale into stark social commentary. Harry's body remains exactly where it fell, lying on the kitchen tiles covered only by a simple sheet, for what appears to be days. The family calls for help, but the emergency response system that's supposed to handle situations like this simply fails to show up or take action. The medics who do arrive refuse to remove the body from the house, and the coroner, who should come to officially deal with the deceased, is nowhere to be found, leaving the family trapped in their own home with a corpse they're not allowed to move themselves. This grotesque situation reaches its most pointed moment when one of the family friends, observing this bureaucratic abandonment, makes a blunt observation that cuts straight to the heart of what's really happening. The friend states matter-of-factly, "If he was white, they'd have had him on his feet and out of here," making explicit what the film had been showing through the neglectful absence of proper emergency services. It's a quietly devastating single line that exposes the systemic racism embedded in how institutions respond differently to Black communities compared to white ones. Charles Burnett included this ghoulish postscript not for shock value, but as a politically charged commentary on the real-world treatment of Black Americans by public services. The scene forces viewers to sit with the uncomfortable reality that even in death, even in a middle-class home, even with a family desperately trying to do the right thing, racism continues to deny dignity and proper treatment. Fact 14. Action star bankrolled film as executive producer. By the time To Sleep with Anger went into production in the late 1980s, Danny Glover had become one of Hollywood's most bankable stars thanks to his role as Roger Murtaugh in the Lethal Weapon franchise. The first Lethal Weapon film had been released in 1987 and became a massive hit, followed by an even more successful sequel in 1989. Glover could have easily coasted on high-paying action roles in mainstream studio projects, but instead he chose to use his newfound leverage in Hollywood to help bring Charles Burnett's intimate independent drama to the screen. Glover didn't just agree to star in the film. He took on the crucial role of executive producer, which meant putting his name and reputation on the line to help secure financing for a project that studios and investors viewed as risky and uncommercial. His involvement as both star and producer was absolutely essential in convincing backers to put money into the film. With Glover attached, Burnett was able to raise a budget of $1.4 million, which represented the most expensive production the director had ever worked on up to that point, though it was still modest by Hollywood standards. This represented a significant financial sacrifice for Glover, who almost certainly could have commanded much higher pay for his acting work in bigger budget films. Instead, he invested his time, talent, and industry clout into a small-scale character study that explored African American folklore and family dynamics, betting on artistic merit over commercial appeal. Glover later won the Independent Spirit Award for Best Actor for his performance as Harry, validating his decision to champion this project. Fact 15. Masterpiece took nearly 3 decades for recognition. When To Sleep with Anger premiered in 1990, the critical response was overwhelmingly positive, with major publications praising Charles Burnett's achievement and recognizing the film as something special. The following year, the film swept the 1991 Independent Spirit Awards, taking home 4 major prizes, including Best Director and Best Screenplay for Burnett, Best Male Lead for Danny Glover, and Best Supporting Female for Cheryl Lee Ralph. The film also received a special jury recognition award at the Sundance Film Festival and won the National Society of Film Critics Award for Best Screenplay, making Burnett the first African American to win in that category in the organization's 25-year history. Despite all this recognition from critics and industry, professionals, official preservation, and widespread acknowledgement took an incredibly long time to arrive. The United States National Film Registry, operated by the Library of Congress to preserve films deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant, didn't select To Sleep with Anger for inclusion until 2017, a full 27 years after the film's original release. This delay is particularly striking when you consider that Burnett's earlier film, Killer of Sheep, was among the very first titles chosen for the registry back in 1990, the same year To Sleep with Anger came out. The film's journey to proper recognition finally reached a satisfying conclusion in 2019 when the Criterion Collection released a beautifully restored 4K digital transfer on Blu-ray and DVD. This release included new interviews, supplemental materials, and a pristine version of the film that allowed new audiences to finally discover what critics had been celebrating nearly 3 decades earlier.